Hello, friends. Are you ready to make a fun handmade card for summer using the Sea Turtles stamp set along with some pattern paper? I have the Bright and Beautiful pattern paper and the Sea Turtle stamp set, and you guys are going to love this. This is kind of a really cool set. It is reversible. So we're going to find out what that means too and make a really fun summer card that I think you're going to love. If you are here and joining me live, go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know that you're watching and where you're watching from. If you're watching the replay, special welcome to you too. I love knowing that you guys watch the replay as well. So leave me a comment. Let me know that you watched the replay. If this is your first time here, I'm Heidi with Onigo Stamping, and welcome to my craft corner. I provide card making tips, tricks, and inspiration to help wannabe artists create beautiful handmade cards, gifts, projects, all sorts of great stuff. So I'm really excited that you're joining me tonight. I'm going to go ahead and get my camera turned around so we can get a better view of my workstation, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. So let me see if I can pick the right one tonight. There we go. All right, so here's the Sea Turtle stamp set. Like I said, it is reversible. So we're going to use the same stamp to create that two-step look, and I think you're really going to like it. That's the stamp set. And then here is the Bright and Beautiful pattern paper. This is a 6x6 paper, and it has these really fun, colorful designs on one side that are super pretty. And then on the other side, let's flip it over, take a look. It has all of these like watercolor wash backgrounds that are really cool too. So I thought this would be really great. There's some really cool, pretty peacock, night of navy, azure afternoon. I have trouble with that word. Really great colors, Lost Lagoon, that I thought would be perfect for using with the Sea Turtle stamp set, right? So I'm actually going to grab this rainbow colored one. That's the one I'm going to use for this card. Let me show you how I cut it down. I'm going to get my extra paper out of the way. All right, so I have this rainbow colored one, and I don't want to get any of this pink in here because it wasn't working with my card scheme, with the color scheme for my card. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this 3 3/4 this direction. And then I'm going to turn it this way, and I'm going to cut it at 4 inches. And that's going to cut off that pink at the bottom. So we just get the blues and greens and yellows, which is what I was looking for this card. So one of the things about the Sea Turtle stamp set that is kind of sad is that it doesn't have any sentiments with it. But that's also really great because then you can combine it with sentiments from whatever sentiment stamp sets you have on hand, or just sentiments from other stamp sets too, or just not have a sentiment. But I went ahead and I grabbed the Sentimental Park stamp set for this one. And I'm going to use the stamps that say, "Let's celebrate your new adventure." So that's the ones I pulled out for this. And what I want to do, I'm going to start by doing just a little bit of die cutting. I have the Nested Essentials die cuts. You guys know, if you've been around here, that I am loving these. These are new in this catalog, in the 2023-2024 annual catalog. If you don't have a catalog yet, let me know so we can get you one. But these are the Nested Essentials, and I love them. So I'm going to grab this one that's just like this diamond pattern, and that's what I'm going to cut my cardstock with. So I want to grab a piece of basic white. There's just some basic white, and I'm going to cut this out. So I'm going to grab the platforms for my cut and emboss machine. I have number 1, and then I have the number 2 platform, which is just kind of like a shim to make it work for cutting. And then I have my cutting plate, which is a number 3. I'm going to add my cardstock, and I always like to cut towards the outside of my cutting plate as much as possible. That's just going to help keep your cutting plates nice and flat. And then we kind of want it to go in at an angle. So I am just putting it this way. Just at a little bit of an angle. You don't want like a flat side going in first, just because it's going to be hard for it to get started. So once I have that laid on there, I'll just grab my other number 3 plate. It's just the same as the cutting plate, but I always use the same cutting plate and then the same top plate. It just kind of keeps your top plate from getting all cut and icky looking. So I'm just going to roll that through my cut and emboss machine. And that is going to give us a really fun tag for the top of our card. So with some nice stitching on the outside, which I love, just kind of gives it a finished edge. You don't have to, layer it or anything to get any sort of an edge on it. It already has that nice stitching on it. So, all right, move these out of the way. And there is my tag. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp my sentiment on here. Like I said, I'm using the Sentimental Park stamp set for this. And I have the Let's Celebrate Your New Adventure. And I want to grab my Pretty Peacock ink. Now to help me get this straight, because it is a triangle. So what I'm going to do, which can be kind of, a little bit hard, I'm going to make sure that my triangle, my diamond, whatever you want to call it, is straight on my grid paper. So I have just lined up the corners on this line. That way I know it's straight. And I don't know, watch, I'll still do this crooked, but I feel like that just helps me get it straight, because then I know what I'm looking at and I can kind of try to line up the edges, like look at the grid and try to get the edge of my stamp lined up. Now you always want to look at the stamp and not the block. So not too bad. And then we'll come in with the other one and we're going to put this on top. Because you're always moving the stamp on the block, you don't want to look at the edge of the block to get your stamp straight. You actually want to look at the edge of the stamp. That's really going to help you get a straighter image. So there's our sentiment. And oops, I need this still. Let's stamp our sea turtles. Should we stamp our sea turtles? So I want to start by stamping a big sea turtle. Let me see. Will this big, oh, that big one will fit on there. All right. So I'm going to get this on the right direction. There we go. I'm going to start by stamping the detail part first. And I'm stamping this in the Pretty Peacock. So I'm just going to ink that up. And then we'll stamp our turtle. I'm going to set that aside for just a minute. You know what? That's not quite as dark as I really kind of want it. I'm going to try it again. I feel like my turtle was just not inked well enough. Sometimes it's good with these big ones. Just grab your ink pad and turn your stamp over and ink it up that way. So let's see if we can get a little bit better impression on our sea turtle. Smush that down good. Probably should put my foam piercing mat underneath. That would help. Oh, that's better. And then I want to do my little sea turtle as well. And he's upside down right now. So I'm going to grab my little sea turtle, because there's a big sea turtle and a little sea turtle. I'm going to grab the little one and just stamp that right here. We're going to cut these out, so it doesn't matter where you stamp them, just a piece of scrap paper. And then I'm going to put my Pretty Peacock aside. I'm going to grab my Stampin' Chamois, which is really stained, but that's okay. It still works. But I'm going to, because I want to clean off my stamps. Because these are reversible, we're going to turn them over. And so I want to get these nice and clean. Stampin' Chamois is great. It's just this chamois. I keep it in an empty stamp case. And then when it gets really dirty, I go ahead and I just take it over to my sink and I rinse it out. And that's all you need to do. And then it's wet. Mine, depending on where you live, mine will stay wet inside the case and it doesn't get icky. Now, some people, if you live someplace really humid, you might find that it gets, mildewy in there. And so you might not want to close it up. You might want to let it dry out. If it does get dried out, it will kind of shrink and get all hard. And that's okay. You have to kind of put it underwater for a couple minutes until it starts to absorb that water again. All right, so I took off all that extra ink. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to peel off my stamp and I'm going to turn it over. Reversible, right? And let's do that with the little one too. So we're going to peel him off, turn him over. And now I want to use my lemon lime twist. I love lemon lime twist and Pretty Peacock together. I think they're just so pretty. So my lemon lime twist is nice and juicy. So we'll ink that up and then just lay this right over my turtle. Try to get it nice and lined up. And there's my first turtle. Ooh, isn't that pretty? All right, and then we'll grab the little one. We'll do the same thing. So again, I just flipped it over and we're using the back of the stamp for this. So there we go. We get that two-step stamping with one stamp because they're reversible. So a fun thing. There's a few little stamp sets like that in the catalog. So now I just want to grab my paper snips and I'm just going to cut this out. This will take me just a minute. It's not too hard. It's a pretty simple cut, but it does take just a minute. So we'll just sit here and chit chat while I cut. I hope y'all are doing well. You may have noticed while this video looks like it is live, I am not actually live because many of you guys know I am away from home for the summer. So I am pre-recording all of these videos. So even though they're coming in and looking like they are live, so you can get notifications and all that kind of good stuff, it's actually pre-recorded. But don't worry, I'm coming in and I'm reading the comments and knowing that you guys are watching. So I love that. So, and I'm going to be doing this all summer. Lots of great ideas for you, even though I am not home. So, have our house sitter holding down the fort for us. All right, just cutting around the sea turtle. Don't forget that designer series paper. So I'm using the Bright and Beautiful designer series paper. That paper is on sale 15% off in June, along with all of the other designer series paper, all the regular designer series paper in the annual catalog. So in the 2023-2024 catalog, all of that designer series paper is on sale for 15% off. So it's a great time to stock up on some pretty pattern paper. I don't know about you, but I love pattern paper. I actually find it hard to make cards without using pattern paper. I just use it so much. All right. Trim, trim, trim. And there is our big turtle. There's our big turtle. And then we'll do the little turtle too. I'm just going to snip off the extra. And let's cut around this little one as well. And then we're going to put our card together. So hopefully in the comments, you are telling me about all the amazing things that you are doing this summer. So I can hear all about them as well, because hopefully everybody's doing fun stuff. All right. Cutting around my little baby turtle. I just love this stamp set. And don't forget, just like every one of my videos, I have more cards to share with you using the same stamps and paper. So I have a couple more ideas to share at the end. So don't go anywhere. Make sure you stick around so you can see those as well. All right, almost done cutting this little turtle. Zoop, zoop, zoop. Around his little backside. And there we go. There's our little turtle. All right, let's put together this card, shall we? So I have that piece of the Bright and Beautiful pattern paper, and this was 4 by 3 3/4. And then I have a piece of Pretty Peacock, and this Pretty Peacock is 4 inches. No, that's wrong. This Pretty Peacock is 3 3/4 inches by 5 inches. And I'm going to adhere my Bright and Beautiful paper to the bottom of it. I'm using some multi-purpose glue, green glue, and just putting a little bit on there. You really don't need very much. And I'm just going to slide this in all the way to the bottom. It's going to line up on the sides and the bottom. Just like that. And then I'm going to grab my sentiment that I made earlier. We're going to adhere that to the top. Now, I'm not going to put glue all the way over on this because we're actually going to let it hang off the side and we're going to trim it up just a little bit. I do want to make sure the full sentiment is on there though. So there we go. And then I'm just going to take this, make sure it's kind of square on there, turn it over, and I'm just going to clip that end. There we go. And then this piece of Pretty Peacock is getting put on a piece of Lemon Lime Twist. Now the Lemon Lime Twist is 5 1/8 by 3 7/8. So just 1/8 inch bigger than my Pretty Peacock. I always like to vary the layers, right? So I have a skinny border and then I'll have a thicker border. Instead of having all the borders the same, I find it looks nicer if you have if you have varying layers. So if you have a thick one, combine it with a thin one. So our card front, this is 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. So the card front is 4 1/4 by 5.5. So that's a 1/2 inch bigger than our original Pretty Peacock that's on here. So here's where you're going to see, you're going to have a thin border and a thick border. And I'm just going to go ahead and adhere this down as well with just a little bit of green glue. We'll pop this on the front. There we go. And now I'm going to put my green glue away for just a minute because I'm going to put this big turtle on with some Stampin' Dimensionals. So let me find my dimensionals. Here's my minis. And here's my regular ones. And I'm just going to put dimensionals on the back of this little turtle. And you can see where I stamped the other turtle earlier and then redid it. Get all these dimensionals in here. All right, and I don't need any of the minis, I don't think. I'll just go ahead and peel the backs off. Go. And then we're going to put our sea turtle on here. And I kind of want them to be like swimming off the edge over here. There we go. And we're going to add our little one, and I'm going to use green glue for the little one. So here's our little turtle. I'm going to put the little turtle down here. Again, he's kind of swimming off the edge too, just like that. And then we're going to add a little bit of bling to this because I love bling. So these are the Adhesive Wax Sequin Trio. And these come in, I think it's like white and Pretty Peacock, and then some sort of pink. I don't know what pink it's supposed to be. Who knows? I'm using the Pretty Peacock ones. And grab my Take Your Pick tool. I'm going to start with a big one. I'm going to put it under this little flipper here. And I'm going to grab another big one, and I'm going to stick it under this back flipper. And then I'm going to grab another big one and stick it over here. And then I want to grab some small ones. I'm going to use the putty tip for the small ones. So we'll put one there, and you're just going to kind of push and then slide, and it's going to come off. Oops. And then it's going to get too stuck to the putty. We'll just add one there. And there is our card. Let me get this stuff out of the way so I can show you. Isn't that cute? Oh, I just love the colors on it. It's just so bright. Bright and bright and bright. All right, where are my bonus cards? I feel like I set them aside here. Oh, here we go. All right. So if you were here Tuesday night, I shared a card sketch with you. And here's the card that I shared using that card sketch in this stamp set. So this one is in a completely different color scheme. But you have the petal pink and the crumb cake. So just a real soft, and no sea turtles, just kind of the bubbles and the starfish and the sand dollar. So there's that one. Here is another one though, using that Bright and Beautiful pattern paper. And here I use kind of the one that is a gradient in the Lost Lagoon. I added some of those bubbles. I don't know if they're bubbles or a coral reef to the bottom in some white ink. So they kind of a little bit different, and cut out the sea turtle and then the starfish and the sand dollar. But I stamped the fish right on the pattern paper. And this sentiment is from the Darling Details stamp set. So isn't that fun? There's that one. And then I have one more that also doesn't have a sea turtle on it. Here we go. So, Oh Happy Day. That's from the new Kindest Expressions stamp set. And then this is that piece of Azure Afternoon that I stamped some little fish on in Night of Navy. And then I ran it through the embossing folder, the painted 3D embossing folder, just to give it a little bit extra watery texture. And then I added some other elements on the front there too. So those are my cards for today. Let me know what you think of those. Let me pop up here. So there's my cards for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I will be back next week, Tuesday, with another Stamp With Me Tuesday. Make sure that you watch the Facebook group on Monday afternoon so that you can see what supplies you'll need for Tuesday's Stamp With Me Tuesday. And I hope that you will join me on Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'll see you next week.